Conservative lawmaker who's still somehow registered as a Democrat, Joe Manchin, has now backed away from his openness to possibly reform the legislative filibuster in the Senate. In an op-ed that was published in the Washington Post, Manchin argued, quote, "There is no circumstance in which I will vote to eliminate or weaken the filibuster. The time has come to end these political games and to usher a new era of bipartisanship where we find common ground on the major policy debates facing our nation." Wait, how exactly do you find bipartisan solutions to issues when the Republican Party literally tried to overturn the results of the election? How do you work with them? How do you have the, I'll say, guts to speak to the American people and argue that the people playing the tricks are the ones who want to do away with the legislative filibuster that effectively allows for bills to go to the Senate to die? It's just so pathetic and ridiculous. I can't stand this man. He also writes, every time the Senate voted to weaken the filibuster in the past decade, the political dysfunction and gridlock have grown more severe. Oh, okay, great. So I guess the solution is to keep a legislative filibuster that requires 60 votes to pass any legislation in a 50-50 split Senate. Okay. The political games playing out in the halls of Congress only fuel the hateful rhetoric and violence we see across our country right now. I would argue that what fuels the violent rhetoric is violent rhetoric coming from lawmakers and politicians like Donald Trump. But I think all the anger and rage in the country right now also has something to do with the fact that Congress is broken, does not actually address the material needs that Americans have. And they continue to nickel and dime average, ordinary people, while with no problems doing what corporations want them to do with lowering tax rates and deregulating industries. That's what Congress does effectively at this point, because they're bought off by these corporations, which I'm sure Cenk has a lot to say about.
Yeah, I do. How did you know that, Casper? I'm kind of amazed at how little reporters and even politicians in Washington know about politics and what's actually happening in this country. I'm flat out amazed by it. So I had kind of assumed that everybody knew that Joe Manchin was working for his donors because it's so blindingly obvious. So for example, on minimum wage, he says, I'm a moderate from West Virginia, it's a red state, and so I'm for lower wages. How is that position a moderate position or a conservative position? In fact, when they polled it in West Virginia, they found out no. Shockingly enough, the voters of West Virginia overwhelmingly want higher wages. They're in favor of $15 minimum wage. Joe Manchin was lying all along. Now, why is he lying? Does it never occur to a reporter to ask, why is he lying? Why does he actually want lower wages? Could it be the millions of dollars he's gotten from corporations who want lower wages? No, scandalous.
Can I add something to that? Yeah, Cenk. It's not, and with Joe Manchin, remember, it's not just that he's been bribed by corporations that do not want to pay a $15 an hour minimum wage. Remember, Manchin himself is personally invested and owns a hotel that does not pay its employees $15 an hour, and he certainly doesn't want to cut into his profits by doing so. And that conflict of interest, by the way, remains legal in our country. Politicians can be invested in individual stocks. Politicians can be invested in businesses that obviously provide some sort of bias or conflict of interest in regard to regulations and actual policy that would impact those businesses. And so the whole system is broken. Like, I know that this is about the legislative filibuster. That's a huge problem. But I think a bigger problem, if you take a step back, is this system of legalized bribery. We talk about it all the time, but also that these conflicts of interest are like totally okay. They should not be invested in individual stocks. They should not be invested in businesses. I mean, it's just crazy, but that's how our system works. And that's why they don't listen to or care about what their own constituents think.
Yeah. So the story that Anna is referring to is on tyt.com/investigates. We broke that story, so you should check that out. Okay, now look, on every issue, infrastructure bill, Joe Manchin says no. The moderate position is that people don't want their roads and bridges fixed, and they don't want higher paying jobs. Well, they polled it. It turns out 65% of Americans do want it. Only 21% are opposed. So what's the moderate position? 2/3 of the country is the moderate position, which is hell yeah to Joe Biden's infrastructure plan. And by the way, his plan to increase corporate tax rates. He says maniacal things like the people of West Virginia want lower taxes for corporations. They don't want big business to pay their fair share. It's insane. Anyone who takes that at face value is honestly stupid. Okay, but so that's my bad that I thought people had a modicum of intelligence in Washington, and I withdraw. Okay, that presumption earlier. So when Joe Manchin says the people of West Virginia want something, just take out the words "people of West Virginia" and put in "my corporate donors." You will have the correct answer 100% of the time. Now, look, with Joe Manchin now saying there's no hope, I'm not going to budge at all on the filibuster. There goes For the People Act. That's the one that allows people to vote, that expands the ability and the opportunity to vote. That is the most core Democratic policy initiative. Now, it's great on policy, but it's also absolutely essential for the Democrats on politics. So now, let alone, of course, he's going to protect corporations at every turn. So Democrats, you now have a choice, but particularly progressives, you have a choice. Are you ever going to fight the guy? Oh, well, I mean, my dear colleague, blah, 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 and I wouldn't want to offend him. Why? The Republicans are irrelevant now. Your main political opponent is Joe Manchin. That's a fact. That fact makes you uncomfortable because then it forces you to either action or surrender. And honestly, 10 out of 10 times, if history is any guide, recently progressives have surrendered. They've never chosen to call out the corporate donors of their Democratic colleagues. That's a fact. That's a fact, okay? So are they gonna do it this time or not? If they don't, all of their priorities are gone. There is a 0% chance that a single Republican would vote for the People Act. That's HR 1. There's a 0% chance, and everybody knows that. So, are you ever gonna fight the guy, or are you gonna surrender? Okay, so look, I got a poll because I'm curious. So and I'm kind of mixed on this poll. Go to tyt.com/polls and you'll see it. Like we're asking about progressives, right? So we're saying progressives in Congress proudly boast of not accepting campaign contributions from corporate donors. I know because I literally invented that rule. Yet they seem unwilling or unable to criticize their fellow Democrats who do engage in this corrupt practice. Why do you think that is? They're afraid to challenge fellow Democrats. They don't believe it's an effective strategy. Now, how could you not believe? I mean, but the reality is, again, maybe I overestimated people. Maybe they literally have no idea, and this is actually totally possible, guys, that they have no idea how to fight, that they have no idea that the most effective way to get Joe Manchin to relent would be to pound him into submission. That is politics 101. You lower his poll numbers and you attack him and attack him and attack him until his poll numbers drop below 50%. But they would never do that to a fellow Democrat. So I don't know, are they not aware of politics? Are they afraid? So now, look, last things here. Number one, if you question whether any politician is afraid, you will offend their delicate sensibilities. And they'll say, okay, that's it. Now I don't want a $15 minimum wage because you offended me. Okay, then you suck at your job and you think this is all about your ego and not about 33 million voters that would get lifted out of poverty. So that's kind of sickening, okay? And then for Joe Manchin, he does the same BS about politeness and etiquette. Well, if anybody challenges me, then I'll dig into my position even more because I'll be offended. I don't give a goddamn about your emotions, okay? I don't care if you're offended, grow up. Which side are you on? This is politics, it's not a game. In politics, every one of these decisions affects millions upon millions of Americans. So I don't care at all if Joe Manchin is offended. Honestly, I don't care if any single progressive or all of the progressives in Congress are offended. You're forced, it's over, it's over. You're forced into a decision. Manchin says, I'm not moving on the filibuster. I'm gonna defeat every progressive policy. So if you sit there and take it, then you betrayed us. Oh no, my feelings are hurt again. My feelings are hurt. My feelings are hurt. My ego is more important than my voters. Get up, do your job, and fight against the Democrat. Fighting against Republicans is both easy and meaningless at this point. So do your job. And if you don't like that, I don't care that I hurt your feelings.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.